Hello and welcome to I Must Ask You a Question show. I'm Tim Nichols with 3 Million%, and this is Jim Bardwell with Fiber Protector America, and we are so glad to be with you today. Jim, what's something good you got for us today?
Well, I tell you, Tim, I was excited about today, and as you and I talked before the show, now I'm even more excited about today. I am looking forward to finishing out 2020 strong. We've been having meetings at my company, and we've got big plans to finish 2020 strong. And so I just want to help bring maybe a little bit of that positive energy to our show today, because I'm feeling very positive about today.
Great, excellent. Well, today we are covering 5 tips to a strong finish. There's been a lot going on this past week even, but if you were to look at where we are circumstantially, we still don't exactly know who the president is. We've got a lot of things up in the air. I mean, heck, the stock market skyrocketed today, which it's like nothing makes sense anymore. But if you were to compile that, with the fact that here we are in November now, and then headed into December. Jim, I don't know if you're hearing this, but what I hear in the businesses that I mentor is a lot of times they say, well, nobody wants to hear from us right now. It's November, the holidays are coming. They want to do something in January, or they don't want to talk to us until January. And something that I like to say is every day that you're not marketing to them and every day you're not working to get a new client or customer is a day that you're not making any money. And so, that's why I want to go into this. And we discussed earlier starting a series of this called 5 Tips to a Strong Finish, but we'll break down each of these 5 tips as we go over the next few weeks and go deeper into those and get into greater discussion. Any thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, I know in my own personal life, what I've been trying to do is remember the old adage of run your race. Run your race. You see, Tim, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I'm not running for political office. I'm not. I have nothing to do with that right now, okay? So, but I am running a race. I am in my own race, okay? And Tim, have you ever seen that video that's on YouTube? Matter of fact, there's many of them, but it's a very humorous video. It's called "Never Celebrate Too Soon." Never celebrate too soon.
I haven't seen that. Yeah,
it's a whole bunch of videos of people who thought they had won the race. They thought they had won. Woo! Victory is mine. And some of them are like somebody's running a marathon and he's putting his hands up. He's running into, and he's but the problem is the race wasn't over. Okay. And he had forgot that. He had forgot that he needs to run his own race. And sure enough, somebody come along behind him. He didn't even see him coming. And at the last second, they passed him and they won. An IndyCar driver who took his foot off the gas and started waving his hands. Boom, a car passed him up and beat him. And so what I'm doing right now with our business, with our licensees, I'm encouraging them to run their own race. Put your eyes on your finish line. Put your eyes towards your goal and how you want to finish 2020. And so I'm so excited about this. I'm excited that we're going to do this whole series. We're going to go to each one of these deeper. But today we're going to cover them, and we're going to let people know what we've got coming for them. So yes, I'm very excited about this topic, Tim.
Well, good. And listeners, make sure you comment, give us ideas and ask questions. Tell us what you're working on right now as we cover each of these. And we'd love to have that in the conversation going in the comments. And we can come back and either answer questions or add our own comments later. But let's get into tip number 1 right now. Remember your why. I like this, and this comes up in so many different authors, but I tell you, this really got my attention when I read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And it just talks about the purpose of what you do, of why you do what you do. And, it goes into a little bit of depth on that. And it helps you get clarity on that. So, Jim, what are your thoughts on Remember Your Why?
Tim, I don't know if any of your listeners or if anybody, I know you and I have talked about the fact you were in Corps of Cadets. You understand a little bit about what I'm talking about for sure. But when I went in the military, I put my eyes on a lofty goal. I wanted to be just like my grandfather. I wanted to be a paratrooper. Okay. And in order to be a paratrooper, at least in the United States Army, you have to, at the minimum, you have to complete what's called airborne school. It's in Fort Benning, Georgia. And for some reason, I had the amazing luck of going through airborne school in the middle of August, which I don't know if you've ever been to Augusta, Georgia in the middle of August. It is hot. I mean, like South Africa hot. I'm talking hot, humid. You can't get a breath. It's horrible. And it's this red clay down there, and it just, you feel like you're in the middle of Hades. And so I'm going through airborne school, and I thought to myself, I cannot fail airborne school. My grandfather was a paratrooper. I mean, everybody, I'd run around my whole small town before I left, told everybody I'm going to be a paratrooper, right? So I thought to myself before I went to airborne school, I said, now what could I do to make sure I don't forget how important it is that I finish this school? Because their job is to make you not finish that school. Okay. They want to put everything in hurdles in front of you that you're not going to, right? So I'll tell you what I did, Tim. I went down when I first got there down in Georgia, before I went to Fort Benning, which is, in Georgia as well. I was in advanced training in Augusta, Georgia. I went down to a tattoo parlor. And I got a whole set of paratrooper wings tattooed on my arm right there.
Yeah.
Tattooed, not drawn on with a pen. I'm talking tattooed, still there, my friend for life. And there's a big old giant pair of airborne. And guess what across the top of it I wrote? Just so anybody get confused.
What?
Airborne. It says it right on top. Okay. So I go to airborne school, Tim. You talk about remember your why. I couldn't forget it. It was tattooed to my arm. Okay. Because then I thought to myself, how could I possibly not graduate airborne school when I done got the tattoo? I gotta finish, okay? And so that's important, man. You got to tattoo it to your arm. Now, I'm not telling our people to go out and get a real tattoo, but maybe mentally they need to make it that much of a commitment. Their why has to be that important for them. And there is a lot of teachable stuff in that story, Tim. Think about that. Is your why tattooed to you? In other words, would your friends, would your relatives, would your circle look at you and say, what do you mean, Tim? What do you mean you stopped 3 million%? That was tattooed to you. You can't, Tim, 3 million%, they're inseparable. You can't separate them. Okay? Yeah. And so our listeners, number one, remember your why. It can't be separable. You can't untether yourself from it. Okay? That's how deep you have to remember your why.
You're more of a history buff than I am, but what I'm thinking of right now is the phrase "burn your ships," and I can't remember which explorer was it. Christopher Columbus?
No. That actually is a term that's been used a few times throughout history. One of the most famous ones was when Julius Caesar invaded Britannia. And, and listen, when you say Britannia, everybody thinks of London. No, there was no London. Britannia was a wild land. It was full of barbarians. It was full of scary, spooky creatures that they didn't even know anything about. And so these poor Roman soldiers, they had left beautiful, sunny Italy. I don't know if you've ever been to Italy. Italy's nice. Nice weather. Well, they go to Britannia. It's cold and rainy, and there's these people painted blue, and they want to eat them. They want to burn them alive, right? And so he thought to myself, well, wait a minute here. How can I give my soldiers no choice but to win victory? Well, I know those ships, that's how they go back to Italy. Guess what? I'll burn them. Ships are burned, guys. We ain't got a trip home. We've got to make the best of it. We've got to survive. We've got to win. And so that's another great example of, your why needs to be so important to you that you burnt those ships. What a famous person once told a young man going to Nashville to be a big country star. And he said, well, I'm going to go ahead and finish college. That way I got a backup plan. He goes, drop out of school. What do you mean drop out of school? Everybody else tells me I have a backup plan. He goes, well, if you got a backup plan, then you're never going to be a country star. Because as long as in the back of your head, the first time you hit a hurdle, you're going to go back home and sell fertilizer. That's what you're going to do. You're going to go back to Oklahoma. You're going back to Oklahoma and be a fertilizer salesman. You know what I mean? And so there's some wisdom in that. There's some wisdom in making yourself putting yourself in a position where you can't forget the why. It's impossible for you to forget it.
Right. And we can go into that on I guess we'll go into deeper on that in another show. Let's talk about refocusing on productive activity. Now, I think right now, with all that's going on mentally, emotionally, with current events, with this time of year, like I mentioned, I think even in the nature of things, with the daylight versus dark, I think energy drops, and it's really easy to get distracted or just be low energy and be less productive. And I think right now we have to focus on productive activity and what that looks like. Even if you create efficiency in your productive activity, okay, so you're lower energy, fine, but be productive in the time that you are working. You can get a week's worth of work done in about 4 days.
That's right. Well, and again, I love, you're right. I do love history. I love reading stories about people that have come before us, because I'm a firm believer, if you know somebody has done something and you know how they did it, it could make your journey easier, right? And, right. A lot of people don't know this, but Thomas Edison had a crazy work schedule. And people say, oh, yeah, I bet you he worked 13, 14 hours a day. No, he didn't. He would have fits of activity, and he called them fits. He would have fits of activity where he would work 2 to 3 hours feverishly. I mean, like no distraction, no food, no water, no nothing, nobody talked to him. But the work that he would get done in those 2 to 3 hours of feverish activity would stack up against the normal man's 8 hours. Okay? And that worked for him. He was able to get more done by just turning off all other influences and concentrating for 3 solid hours. I've got a person that I coach, a business that I coach personally, and this gentleman had struggle. He was struggling getting enough sales calls done. Okay, and I said, listen, I've done the math for you, and all you need to do is 12 service calls a week, 12 sales calls a week rather. 12 sales calls a week will do it. I promise you it will. I've done the math. I know how many will be successful. If you have success, I know what the financial gain for that will be. All you have to do is 12. And I said, I don't care if all you do is 12 in one day. Just take one day a week and do those 12 calls. And then you can sit around the rest of the week. I don't care what you do. And you know what's funny, Tim? He's successful. He's got clients. He's booked up for weeks right now. He's turning clients away. He's telling people, I can't get to you before the end of the year. I've got to refer you to a friend of mine. And it's because he consistently did those 12 sales calls, and usually he did them all in one day. And now a true capitalist would go, well, heavens to Mongoloid, if he's got that kind of success in one day, why don't he work the other days? Well, because it doesn't work for him that way. For some reason, when he would spread himself out over the whole week, he was less productive than if he just concentrated all of his activity on one day.
Right. And I think there are times of day that you're more productive as well, and in finding that too. But, my big idea here, 5 tips to finish strong, is just focus on productive activity and don't get caught up in the distractions and negativity of, just like I was saying earlier, these big changes now. People are running from Facebook, going to Parler, which I hear is pronounced parlay, or they're going to MeWe, which is the competitor to Facebook, supposedly, and all of that. What does that sound like? That sounds like you would have to do your research to try to figure out which one of those is productive for you. And I mean, it sounds like that's an extra job that that I don't know that I want.
Man, you go through all that made me thirsty. Whew, that's a lot of work.
So, and so what would be more productive? Making sales calls, going out to seeing people, going out to see people. But I think with live events, even if you just, some people are staying on social media a lot right now. That may not be as productive as making sales calls. But also, even if you had the opportunity to go to in-person events, some people make a practice of just going to in-person events but they're not having conversation. Conversion conversations about trying to get those people to do business with them. They're just attending. They just attend social media. They attend in-person events. They attend stuff.
Well, again, us, folks like you and I that grew up in the South, there's all these little anecdotes that we were told when we were young, right? And one of them was the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. You ever thought about what the heck does that mean? Proof is in the pudding. I've eaten a few gallons of pudding in my life, and I've never found no proof in it. What are they talking about? The proof is in the pudding, right? Well, that saying comes from the idea that, believe it or not, making a good pudding is hard, Tim. Pudding is not something easy to make, and pudding is not what we think it is. Pudding is in the English sense, okay? A pudding is a very complicated dish, and you can make it, and it's terrible. It's too hard and dense and tastes like, right? But a good pudding, a good English pudding, is fantastic. So how did you know if you had a good cook? The proof was in the pudding. The proof was in the pudding. Right? The proof is in the pudding. You'd say, well, that's fine. She might be able to bake bread, but what is her pudding like? Okay, let's find out if she is a good cook. So the proof would be in the pudding. Everybody listening to this call right now, Tim, every single person listening to this call knows where their pudding is.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's see, time blocking is helping me be more productive. Unless you have just started your career yesterday, you know where the proof is. You know where the pudding is. You know what is productive. Of course we do. The trick isn't figuring these things out. Look at Haley. The trick is just implementing things that we know works. Tim, I just had a little aha moment 2 weeks ago, and I'm doing exactly what Haley said. I've decided that Mondays and Fridays are going to be a task to do certain things. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are going to be tasked to do other things. We know what works. We just have to do it.
Yep. And I think there's a certain rhythm and flow to it too, where you try to capture your productivity, your productive hours in the time blocks. It's like what Haley's saying. I mean, I bet she has certain times of day that she's more productive at certain parts of running her restaurant, and so, which I guess she might have something to say about the proof being in the pudding too.
That's right. That's right. Haley, how's your pudding? You got some good English pudding? I'd love to know how you make out on a nice Yorkshire pudding. And again, it's not the kind of pudding you get at the buffet at the Chinese restaurant. We're talking about a different pudding. But anyway, yeah, I tell you, if you want an eye opener, and I dare say people did it right now, they might be embarrassed how much time they're wasting. Do it 1 week time log. Keep a log for 1 week, an hourly time log of what your activity is. And right now, you're right. It's probably pretty scary. I'd say that people need to refocus. I agree with you.
I used to keep a journal as I would make calls, just writing down what the responses were in the journal and stuff like that. And I would write down the times of where I was making those calls and when I got the responses and what those responses were and things like that. And that was even just during my time blocks to make sure that they were effective. But you really get to learn a lot about yourself as you do that. Let's see. Haley said, yes, I have a lot to say about this.
about the time logs or the pudding?
and Haley, we're glad you're watching with us. So, and that goes to any other listeners or viewers. Make sure you continue this conversation and give us your ideas. Tell us what you do. Ask questions. We'd love to be able to help you with that or listen to you. Let's move into redirecting negativity and distraction. There's plenty of that to go around right now.
Oh, Tim, again, what is that other old Southern saying? Don't get me started on that one, right? I've got a newspaper article that I wish I could put my hand on it easy. It's here somewhere in my study here. It's a newspaper article, and you read it, and you think, yes, that is what's going on today. That person writing that article, he has got his finger on the pulse of this country. He is telling it like it is. Oh my gosh, I tell you, no words have ever rang so true as what this man is putting forth. His gift of the vernacular is adequately capturing the mood and what is going on in my mind right now. And there's only one problem. That newspaper is dated 1860.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that tell you? The same old thing that people, we just don't change. Human beings don't change, and we get distracted by the same stuff. I once had a man that read a newspaper article from the stock market crash. And it was so strange because that article, you could have changed the date and it would have been 2008 all over again. And so what do you take away from that? Well, how about this? What are you called to do? I know what I'm called to do. And as long as I am giving any percentage of my energy and my attention towards negativity and these distractions, I am absolutely incapable of fulfilling my purpose. Incapable. I said it once on this call, I'll say it again. I'm not running for political office. I'm not on the board of directors for the city of Boise. I'm not even the dog catcher. I have nothing to do with any of that. Okay? I let my voice be heard last Tuesday, and I'm done with it. Okay? What does my small circle need from me right now? Well, they need me to be positive, and they need me paying attention to the things that I'm responsible for. And I just have a firm philosophy that if I do that, if I pay attention and I take care of the things that are in front of me and my responsibility, and I do that in a way that is positive and that is going to benefit those that have the potential to be benefited, that in my own small way, I am improving. I am creating the world that we all want to live in. Again, that's all just my own little personal philosophy, but it seems to be serving me well right now. I know that right now I feel much more productive than a lot of my friends are telling me they are. Okay, they are complaining about their level of productivity, and I asked them. I said, "Well, let's go over the last 24 hours. What have you spent your time doing?" Tim, you know the answer to that. They've spent a lot of their time in places mentally where they're just completely unproductive.
Well, and I think some of that can come from depression. So if we're going to be productive, we have to, number one, think positively. I guess ancient scripture tells us the overflow of our heart, our mouth speaks, and things we do, reflects that. But if we're concentrated on, let's say, news, right? If we're concentrated on that, I don't know. I've said it before in other calls talking about the momentum cycle or the success cycle. If your belief goes up, your potential goes up, you take massive action and your results go up, and then your belief goes up even more and you get bigger potential and you take bigger massive action. But the opposite of that is true too. The less action you take, the more your results go down. Your belief goes down, your potential goes down, your action goes down. So it's a negative momentum cycle as well. So I think a lot of times, like right now, especially with holidays coming and as well as the current events and things like that, it's really easy to get sucked into a negative momentum cycle. And the longer you sit on your hands and don't do productive activities toward meeting your goals. I mean, we've got less than 60 days before the end of the year, and you throw in holidays, you've got maybe 45 productive days to actually make sales and try to create momentum for January. If you're disengaged, wow, I feel bad. I mean, it's only going to get worse if you're disengaged now. It's only going to get worse through December and into January, and then you're going to be in a real pickle.
Well, and I saw something on a electronic news article I was reading the other day, and it said in the United States, every single day in the United States, every 24-hour period, 17 new millionaires are created. Every day. 17 new millionaires. I thought, man, that doesn't sound like a lot. I would think it'd be more than that. But that's not bad if you think about it. 17 new millionaires created every single day. So you do the math in a week. How many new millionaires is that? That's a lot, right?
Right.
And it didn't quantify it. It didn't say, oh, well, there won't be that many millionaires made if such and such happens. There won't that. No, they're saying on average 17 new millionaires every 24 hours. I might be getting that wrong. It might have been every hour. Anyway, it was a lot. There's a lot of people becoming millionaires, okay? And it didn't say, oh, well, wait a minute. If this one situation happens this way, well, all bets are off. Nope, never said that, Tim. Never said that. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us really simple that I think a lot of times what we do, and this is subconscious, that what we do is we want to worry about things that are out of our control. We want to worry about things that we don't have any control over. We have no control whatsoever. Because guess what? When those things go south, we're not accountable for them. And then we have a perfectly good excuse to blame our unaccountability in the areas we are accountable for. Well, of course, I didn't make any sales calls yesterday, Jim. I didn't make any sales calls since last week. I have just been in a tizzy over everything that's going on. I can't make sales. Jim, how can you even think about making sales calls right now when the world is ending around us? Well, I'll tell you how I can think about making sales calls, because I believe that I offer a product, good, and service that can improve people's lives. And if I truly believe that, Tim, what you do as a vocation has ramifications in people's lives that is uncountable. It is unfathomable. You will have a far-reaching effect that can go so far beyond your vision, okay? And if you said, oh my gosh, I'm going to sit on my hands this week because everything that's going on. Well, when you start to really think about how selfish that is and how self-centered that is, right? How dare me stop doing what I am put on this planet to do because of something I have no control over.
Yep. And that goes back to tip 1. Remember your why.
Remember your why. That's right. Re-engage the market.
Yeah, re-engage your market is the next tip here. And so we have to make sure that we go and talk to our people. Go talk to your current clients, your current customers. Find out what they're going through. Go encourage them. Find out what they need. They might need more of your product, and you're sitting there worrying about things that you have no control over. And here your customers and clients need you right now, and you're just worried about you. So if you were to re-engage your market and go out and ask them questions, go make those calls, go check on them, go encourage them, it's there. On top of that, you could go talk to prospects, see where they are. They might be so frustrated with their person that's not calling them back, who might be their current supplier or advisor or whatever. They might be ready to change, so you can use current events and you can use end of year planning to try to start those conversations with them.
Well, I have members of my organization all over the country. And as we went through the year, people said, oh my gosh, I'm so slow. I don't have time. I don't have enough clients. I don't have enough revenue. I don't have enough transactions happening. This is terrible. This is terrible. And I kept encouraging them. Well, now's the time to work on your business. Because see, I knew these people for years. Some of these people I've known, Tim, for 20 plus years. And there's many times in that time I've known them, hey, I gotta work on my website. Oh my gosh, my website's so outdated. I need to get more images on there. I need to change the text. I've got information on there that's not even factual anymore. I've moved locations and da-da-da. They went on and on. Well, why don't you get that done? Oh, I don't have time. I don't have time for that. I don't have time. Jim, I'm so busy. You have no idea how busy I am. Well, last 6 months, you ain't been doing nothing. Okay. And so people are calling me right now. Oh, I'm going into the end of the year and I've got time on my hands. I tell you, this is, it's amazing to me how many ways we can come to justify less than premium performance or premium objective. We come up with 1,000,001 ways to do it, Tim. We're either too busy or too slow. Mm-hmm. I guess there must be some perfect little, I guess we're all like, everyone in business is like Goldilocks, right? That bed is too soft. That bed is too hard. I only want one that's perfect, right? That porridge is too hot. That porridge is too cold. I want porridge that's perfect. I'm going to let you in a little secret. There's 3 bowls of porridge in that story, right, Tim? 1, 2, 3. Only one of the bowls was perfect. Well, you've narrowed 3 down to 1. So now you've got 3 opportunities. You've narrowed it down to 1 because you want perfection. What if somebody come on and says, like me, see, I'm not picky when it comes to supper time, Tim. I'll eat it cold. I'll eat it hot. I'll eat it warm. I don't care. I love my food, right? And my wife's very picky. But we go to a restaurant and that steak comes out. If it's not piping hot, she'll send it back. Man, I've had steak come out before, had ice cube on it. I just gobbled it right up. I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm easy going. Let's just eat. Let's get on with it. And so if they're looking at their market right now and they're saying, well, times are not perfect. You know, that's not the perfect client. They're too cold, or they're too hot, or they're too this, or they're not enough of that. How about we just change our palette a little bit? Why don't we realize that we can work with all 3 of those? And now instead of 1 target, we've now opened ourselves up to 3 targets. And there's a lot more opportunity in 3 than there is in 1.
That's true. Now let's get to tip number 5 here. How would you reward progress for, let's say, for yourself? You know, when you have progress, let's say you refocus and you get back to work and you're doing things the right way or something like that. What does rewarding your progress look like?
Well, you have come full circle. You have come full circle, Tim, because we started off with why. Why did you go into business? Why did you take that job? Why did I move to Boise, Idaho? Okay, I just recently moved to Boise, Idaho. Why did I do that? There was a why there. Okay, so that brings me, if I'm going to look for a reward, the reward should lie in your why. Man, I'm a poet, don't know it. How about that, huh? Your reward
I like it.
Yeah, your reward should lie in your why. Okay? If you can make sure those 2 things end up touching, now you've got a big circle. Now you can go all the way around and back again, okay? Because that's exactly what I do. I reward myself in my why. Okay? The reason that I'm in the vocation that I'm in is I wanted to have a job and a vocation where I could spend time with my wife. My wife could accompany me on a lot of my things I do for work. She could come with me to conferences. She could come with me to seminars. She could come with me to go do marketing junkets. And guess what? She can. And so why is my reward in that? Well, if I'm successful in that, if my company's successful and we're making profit and we can pay our bills and pay each other salary and we can reinvest in the company and grow the company, well, my reward goes right back to my why. Well, then I get to keep doing what I love doing and my wife can come with me. You know, why are people doing what they're doing? And if the reward doesn't lie in the why, then 1 or 2 things. You've got to re-examine your why or come up with a different reward because they're not lining up. Okay? Well, I tell you what, if I hit my sales goals, my company sends everybody that hits their sales goals, they send everybody to Hawaii. But I can't stand Hawaii. I hate Hawaii. I hate the beach. I can't stand sand. I don't like sun. I hate the heat. I don't want nothing to do with Hawaii. Well, your reward and your why is not lining up, right? Maybe you should go to your boss and say, I tell you what, it's a lot of money to send people to Hawaii. I mean, it's a lot. It ain't cheap, right? I tell you what, boss man, I'll hit my goal, but just give me a check. Whatever you're going to spend on sending me to Hawaii, I'll just take it as a bonus. And that way I can go do what I want to do. Make sure that your reward aligns with your why.
That's good input right there. Well, and something I was thinking about this when I kind of had this thought is even on a micro level, you know, even if you, well, I'll tell you how 3 million% came about. This is a financial advisor in sales. You're told to track how many calls you make a day, how many appointments you schedule a week, you know, what kind of assets under management you're bringing in a month, you know. And when I started over as an independent, those numbers felt depressing, you know, and frustrating. And so I changed up the progress scale. So instead of how many calls or how many appointments or something like that, I changed it up for myself, which became the 3 million% process. Deepen relationships quickly, elevate your profile within the community, leverage networks, build credibility, and establish community. Did I do those 5 things every day? And if I did those 5 things every day, then I should be rewarded with business, right? With conversion and things like that. Well, I would get that. And then you start looking at, okay, well, what could I do every month if I hit my goal? Here I was independent. I didn't have a company to say, hey, well, you can go to Hawaii or you can get this break or whatever. Well, it might be a reward like going to a nice steakhouse on a date night, right? Something along those lines. So all I'm saying here is business owners or even sales professionals or anything like that, look for those opportunities to anchor your wins. Feel the wins, right? Make that feel like you're doing something good. Now, I hear what you're saying, Jim. I like the fact of tying it back to your why, right? But it's easy to feel good when you're getting some things done in the short term. It's kind of like this is a little left turn here, but like what Dave Ramsey says, when you're doing a debt snowball, and if you were to have these little wins like saving so much money in a month or something like that, you want
Right.
to pay off the lowest balances first because it feels like a win, right? And
That's right.
so, in doing that in your productivity schedule, in your progress, measure the little wins and rejoice in those, because it will encourage you to take bigger action later to get bigger activity done. And that's where I was going with that.
Exactly. And, and that's something that even with children, they teach you that if you have a child that wants to learn how to play the violin. Well, I don't know, Tim, if you've ever had a child that decided to learn to play the violin. Listen, you might as well say, okay, I'm going to go find me about 3 or 4 polecats, tie them up by their tail, and go hang them on the back porch and sit out there and relax. Yeah. You got to set yourself some little micro rewards in there. You got to, and that's what they do when they teach them violin. I never forget the first time I went to see my son do a violin recital. Well, I thought I was going to go in there and listen to Mozart. I thought we were going to go in there and I was expecting just harmony. It's beautiful. The angels were going to sing, right? And I go in there, and I'm sitting there on that little hard gymnasium, bench, and it was after work. I was tired, but man, I wanted to see my son. He'd been taking violin lessons for like a month. I figured that we're going to hear some music. Tim, we get in there. He stands up in front of us and goes, "Bing, bing, bing, bing." There was no ball to be seen. I'm thinking, what in the tornado? How much money have we spent so he can sit there and pick at some strings? That's learning to play a violin ain't easy, man. Just even understanding what the strings are supposed to sound like. And when you look at a sheet of music, that you're even touching the right string, I guess that's a big deal. She let them kids have a recital to show off how much they had accomplished. Now, I do believe, though, Tim, that sometimes if we want to broaden our perspective of reward, we do need to broaden our perspective of why. We have a licensee that's in our program, and he is one of the most successful rug importers in all of the state of Washington, the entire state. And he has been extremely successful, and financially, you would see the fruits financially in his life. Beautiful home, lovely automobiles, big, gorgeous business. Seattle is not a cheap place to own a business. He's got this big, huge building and just all the multiple locations around the state, all the trappings of success. You know why he's so successful?
Why?
So his why is just about as big a why as I've ever seen someone personally take on. He's got villages, entire villages in Africa that he provides clean drinking water for. Not down the street. I'm talking an entire another continent halfway around the world in countries that are maybe not even very favorable to people from his positioning. And he has the responsibility of providing villages with clean drinking water. That is his why. That's a big why, Tim. And if he's going to make that happen, his reward has to be big enough to allow that to happen.
Right.
And so if you're sitting there at your desk and you're going, man, I tell you, I'm just, I'd be happy if I can pay the bills. Well, maybe that's what your reward's going to be. You're going to barely pay the bills. My wife and I just this past weekend sat down and broadened our perspective of our why. We made it move out into a much bigger circle. Okay. COVID-19, and I'll admit it, COVID-19 had made me retract my why a bit. There's a whole bunch of retractions going on lately, haven't there been, Tim? Ooh, man. Ooh. People had big goals January 1. Man, some of these people have circled that back down to man, I sure hope I can pay the rent today, right? That's a pretty big retraction, right? From opening new locations to I'm hoping to pay the rent. Well, now it's time maybe we should push those back out again. Let's push our why circle out again, and then our reward progress will be judged by that why.
I like that. I like that. I'm glad you mentioned that. And, I'm opening this up for questions, comments. So, audience, please feel free to chime in here, or we can continue the conversation in the comments as we go, even after the show is aired. But, something to consider on that is we're going to be going into each one of these over the next several weeks and trying to dig deeper into not just why you would do each of these, how to do these. We want to give you insight on our experiences and what we've seen worked really well. And we hope that you'll join us in those conversations because we want to hear what works for you. Even now, chime in on the comments. We want to know what works for you. So, we want this to be an ongoing conversation for the next several weeks because we're going to be ramping up and doing this through the holidays too, because we want you to keep making money now. Forget just momentum into the new year. We don't want you to wind down. I'm speaking for Jim too. Jim, what you got on that?
No, it's funny. I had the privilege at one time in my career of traveling the country is when I first got started in consulting and coaching, and had the privilege of working under someone who taught me so much about this. And he was doing a presentation one time to a group of people, and they were all small business owners, and they happened to be in the carpet cleaning business. It didn't matter what business, but everyone in this room was in the carpet cleaning business. And this was in Las Vegas. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to talk to you about today is the power of why. Do you remember why you went into business? Perhaps you went into business to make money. You wanted to make more money. You were in a dead-end job. You want to make more money. Or I know. You went into business so you could have more time off and be able to travel with your spouse and go on vacations. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's what you're on right now, right? You're at a carpet cleaning conference, and that's also your vacation. And as he said that, I happened to be off the stage to one side, and I looked out in the audience, and there was a couple there. And they both had on their little company shirts, their little carpet cleaning company shirts. And the lady, she looks over at the husband and she goes, so you know what she was saying? She was saying, that's exactly what's going on here. This is my vacation. Yeah. The only vacation I get in this business is to go to a carpet cleaning convention in Las Vegas, right? And, and that's the power or the challenge of those whys. So I am very excited about this. I'm very excited that we'll spend more time on each one of these topics. We both got a lot of experience, but hey, our listeners have experience. And maybe what we could do, Tim, is in the comments, we could put down these 5 things in the comments so that they can come back to these shows prepared to bring their own input, bring their own experience with these topics as well. I think that'd be exciting.
I think so too. So, I'm excited about this. And so I look forward to continue to build this momentum through the end of the year. And again, maintain this conversation going into the comment section. But join us next Monday for our show at 2:00. And before we go, though, Jim, would you please share about our sponsor, Fiber Protector America?
Absolutely. So as I like to say every week, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to serve as Executive Director of Sales, Marketing, and Education for a company called Fiber Protector America. And what does Fiber Protector America do? Well, our why is very simple, Tim. Our why, the reason we exist, is to provide access to the world's most technologically advanced, environmentally friendly protection system. Now, believe it or not, Tim, did you know there are people that spend $40,000 and $50,000, $60,000 on a rug? Well, that's called an investment quality textile. What Fiber Protector is an investment quality protection product for that textile. If anyone wants to learn more about the product or the opportunity to become a licensed rep for this company, you can go to our website, which is fpamerica.com. That's initials only, FP, like Frank Paul, fpamerica.com. Or you can reach out to me at my email, which is jim@fpamerica.com. That's jim@fpamerica.com.
Thank you for that. And 3 million percent, I want to tell you a little bit more about that. 3 million percent, what we do is we increase your revenue through referral generation. And we provide a peer advisory program structure with curriculum to help you engage other business owners, to share ideas, experiences, and ask questions so that you can all share in one another's victories, challenges, and experiences. So I encourage you to take a look at that, 3millionpercent.com. Number 3, spell out millionpercent.com. And you can reach me at tim@3millionpercent.com. So thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next Monday at 2:00 on the I Must Ask You a Question show. Have a good day.